All right, hi everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Journey on the Podcast. I'm Ben Sanguinetti, and this is my good friend Nate Jones. And we are here today, like always, to serve the world through our own experiences because life is a journey, and we all just need to have a little bit more fun. We have a really fun episode today. I mentioned before in episode 8, we did a recap of all the past lives I've experienced. And we're going to go a little bit deeper because we went very deep in episode 9 with a very special guest with Brenda and explained that a little bit more. And we're going to go even deeper today and explore 2 past lives in depth and how they affected me. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it over to my good friend Nate, and we're going to do a little check-in before we dive into this journey.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Ben. So as always, let's just take a few moments and just kind of settle down. Be still if you can, and close the eyes if you can. And then just take a few breaths. So just let all of your attention be on your breath, whether you're taking deep breaths, whether you're taking medium breaths, or whether you're just observing your breath. And you can do this even if you're doing something. Just see what happens to your activity, no matter what you're doing, if you just pay attention to your breath. There you go, good. Just in and out, the rising and falling. And this very steady thing that is happening all the time. And then notice if you can feel a little bit more of your body. Maybe you can feel energy in your hands or energy in your feet. Maybe you feel the body just start to relax a little bit. And it's really nice to let your body relax because it kind of represents just allowing yourself to be natural as you are in this moment. And not holding any tension to try and make it different. And then so just for a moment, just see if you can internally experience 100% acceptance of how you are in this moment. And then in the state that you're in, internally a few times, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, and then taking a little bit deeper of a breath. And just feeling that life fill you up. And then as you exhale, again, just relaxing, maybe just kind of smiling to yourself. All right, and then if you feel like it, you can slowly let the eyes open. Good. And, so just maintaining a little bit of awareness of your body, maybe a little bit of awareness of your breath. And as we're able to relax, and no matter what we're doing, that we're able to do that thing better. And definitely that includes listening. If we're in a relaxed place, then we can be very open and receptive and listen. But then, if we're alert and relaxed, then we're not just going to be totally taking everything in, and be influenced that kind of in a way that maybe we don't need to be influenced. So during the episode, maybe just keep coming back to like the place of relaxed alertness, and then you decide what you want to take in.
That is perfect. Thank you very much, my friend. Appreciate it. So we have a fun episode today. I'm really excited about it.
Me too.
So, yeah. So I was going through like my recordings and remembering everything again. And this is going to be really cool. So we're going to talk about past life regressions again today. And we're going to go deeper into 2 past life regressions that I had. And I'm glad that we're doing it the way we're going to do it. And these 2, I think, go actually side by side, even though they're so different, because of things that happened in my life during that span in time. And just a reminder, too, before we dive into it, if you are thinking about doing a past life regression, don't be reckless with it. After my first one, I'm actually going to explain, too, why not to be reckless with it, even though I still wasn't reckless. I had a couple things crazy happen to me after the first one. And let's just dive into it, because I think everyone understands that enough. So the first one I did, I really was at a crossroads in my life. And I was deciding, if I wanted to change my career, if I wanted to do a couple different things new in my life. And so I really started exploring a few new things here and there. And I really started going deeper into, I started briefly going what I thought was deeper into my spiritual practice more, started meditating a little bit more, started doing a few, things like that. And somehow down the line, I started like looking into past life regression, and who I was working with at the time to go deeper into this was Brenda, who we had on in episode 9. And as I started exploring this, I really just had a calling of like, you know what? I really need to do this to have a sense of just life. So I was really called to do it. So through some discussions with Brenda and exploring and understanding what I was going to get into, I decided just to dive into this. And I was looking back, this is about 5 years ago. This is about a 5-year journey. Okay. And, also too, to add, I started actually switching up and getting healthier a little bit more. I really dove into it after the first past life. But I started like actually changing my diet a little bit more. I've shared on this episode, I've lost over 100 pounds. But during that time, I probably lost about 20, 25 pounds. Just my life started changing a little bit more. And by the time I dove into this, I thought I was really ready. And it was at the moment. But there was obviously more work that needed to get done. So anyways, let's jump to the good stuff. I dove into this past life regression with Brenda. And the first one that I recovered was the Mobster.
So when you went into this first time, when you went into this first time, did you have like any idea of like the what might happen, or like did you have any kind of an intention, specifically?
No.
Okay.
No clue.
That's
no
so
clue.
Cool.
No fucking clue. No clue. And I think that's what makes it so awesome of what actually happens with this too. All I knew was that I needed to do it, and that like I really just trusted spirit to just show me what it was going to show me. Whereas the other ones later on, I knew what energy I was calling in. For the most part, I did.
Yeah.
So that's why I think this time was like really unique and special, this first one. And so when I dove in, I didn't know what I was going to see. So the best way to describe it of what I see before I dive into any past life now, or before I go into a deep meditation, is it just becomes like space. And it's just like all I really see is black and stars. And the best way to describe it is I literally started out just floating in space. And Brenda's there with me, and she's giving me like a countdown. And this first time around, she really was just like guiding me through it, having me feel stuff. And like, as I'm even describing it right now, you just get like chills when you're in like this outer body experience. And you're just floating. Like, you just feel like you're floating. And when you haven't studied like energy work before or done anything regarding that, it gets really like tingly and numbing. And I remember like already having to like really breathe and like check myself. And like in my first recording, because we record all of my past life regressions, me and Brenda have recorded them, and you could really hear me start like breathing, because like the energy was really heavy and just like a lot for me. So we sat there like for a little bit to really like feel into that energy. And as I started really feeling into it, I just got to this point where it was just like, just let go. Just like, let go. Stop trying. You can't control shit up here. Just give it over to spirit. You got nothing. We're going to show you what's up. And as soon as I did that, I remember just like getting sucked in.
Wow.
And I got like sucked in, and all of a sudden I could hear this like what sounded like, and what I really realized was it was this train, and it was going like a train like rolling over. And I was in this tunnel, and it was getting quicker. It was and then all of a sudden I was in this tunnel, and I could see nothing but like, it was like just a like black and light, like going like quick. Like if you were in a train and you see the windows, like the light going like light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. And then all of a sudden I was sitting on this like really nice looking train, and I was sitting in this like really nice looking chair. And then like I could see the train window like right next to me.
The way you brought us into that, it was like I was in the movie Inception. It was like, you know, kind of like this like that chaotic kind of vibration, and then all of a sudden just like, whoa, where are we now?
Right. And this is a good moment to pause too. Just a FYI, I love trains. Like, I love trains. I think they're a lot of fun. I like the history of trains. So before this too, like, I would geek out on trains like all the time. And like, so like I like going to the Sacramento Train Museum over here in California. I like all the history about trains. So like that's just a cool side note that like before I even did all this, like I was geeking out over trains, because like obviously, and I'll get into it more, like where I was at was like a private train car that I spent like a lot of my time on. Okay. So I'm on this train and I'm looking around, and then I look up and there's this dude next to me, and he's like just talking to me, and he lights me a cigar, and he's smoking a cigar, and we're just sitting back and we're smoking cigars on this train. And I'm looking around, and like I said, it's a private train car. So whoever is this person that I'm on has a lot of money. Like they have their own private train car. And we're talking business, and I'm like going over stuff, and I could feel myself. I'm like really nervous, like really, really nervous. And I have all this like remorse and regret. And I'm like trying to hold it together and stay calm, because I don't want this other guy who's older than me, I don't want him to like understand like what I'm thinking. So I'm trying to play it cool. And then like I'm walking over with him, and I'm like going over stuff, and I'm kind of trying to distract him. And then all of a sudden I like bring him over to a place like next to a door. And then these guys barge in this door and like knock him over and like grab him. And he like looks up at me in like this state of like shock. And what I realize is that I've betrayed him. And like I've said, this life is called the Mobster, and whoever this past life was in the mob, and I was betraying my boss at the time. And so he has this look on his face like you're gonna do that to me, like you're gonna do that to me after everything I've done for you. And how it works in the mob and how it worked in this life is this guy took me under his wing when I was really young, took care of me, did everything, but he was a lot older, and he wasn't necessarily making the right moves, you can say. And so the other guys got together with me and wanted me to take over for him. So to jump into like what else happened, basically he got the shit kicked out of him and ended up getting killed. And I was a part of that. And then I got to this point where everything was done. They were taking him away, and I opened up his cigar box, took his cigars out, and it was just me in this like crazy shot. I'll never forget this image in my head of me sitting down, like wiping up blood off my hands and like cutting a cigar and smoking a cigar and like realizing like I just became the boss. And before that too, to jump into like our dialogue before he like died is like he was sad, but he knew it had to happen, because this is what happened a lot of times in like mob worlds and the bosses and the family chain, is that the next guy takes over and the next guy takes over. And that's kind of, how it worked. And the remorse and regret that I felt carried on for lifetimes, and it ended up happening to me. So later on too, I got killed by somebody else that took my job, and then somebody else did it to that person. And it really, like, the best way to describe it and to get into why it's important, it was trauma for me that I didn't even realize that I had all this guilt, all this anger, all this frustration. And I really needed to, that image of me sitting back on this chair and like smoking a cigar and looking at his eyes of like not wanting to do it, but having to do it. It was crazy to understand that trauma. And when I understood that trauma, it really helped with a lot of different things personally that happened in my life. And I can't get into that too much on this life of what happened to me personally with everything after I did that. But this chain of events did help me understand a lot more about myself. So the mobster life was through. I had this image of this guy sitting down, and then Brenda's over here like guiding me during this whole time. And she tells me, okay, you're done with this life, but Spirit wants to show you 2 more. And I got sucked out and like just pushed forward again. And then when I looked around, I was like in Egypt, and like there was pyramids around me, and I was like doing like what looked like qigong, like in like Egyptian clothing with like some like other like people were teaching me and like going through stuff, and like the pyramids were like behind me, and I was like just looking at this image, right? And that's all I saw with the Egyptian life. And then she tells me, okay, you have 1 more. Wow. And I got sucked out again, and then I pushed forward, and then there's this dude hovering over me like in a meditative state. And the best way to describe it is he literally just looked like pure energy. And he was just pure energy meditating over me. And he just looks at me and he goes, you have a lot of work to do before you get to me. And just stay connected and do your work and just trust yourself. Wow. And what's important to understand too is during this entire time, yeah, it was trippy. So during this entire time, as I'm getting sucked in and sucked out, this is all brand new to me. I've never really done like energy work like this and like understood how to ground myself and how to, feel that kind of energy and power, right? So during it, you can hear me breathing heavier and heavier and heavier. And like, I'm like trying to like navigate it, right? And so after that, the energy I felt around this other guy, who later on is the monk, that I'll get into later. So the Egyptian and the monk, I'll get into those past lives later on more. And if you want a little bit more details about them now, you can go back and listen to lesson 8. But we'll do a whole episode on both of them. So then I got sucked out of that. And then when I got sucked back out of that next one, I got sucked back into space. And I was just hovering again. And it was honestly, that was just like to calm me down and settle me down. And then once I got calm and settled down, I got back and I went back into what we'll call real life or the illusion or whatever it is. And
Yeah, who knows?
right. Who knows? Right? Who the fuck knows? And I remember literally I came out of this and I was like, what the fuck just happened? And luckily, this is why I say, you know, to work with somebody like Brenda, you know, she was there for me, explained a lot to me. We talked a lot, and I like literally got, after this one was done, you know, I'll be completely honest with people. I was like emotional. I was like, what the hell? And the reason you get like that is you're like, you know, I talked about the mobster's life. I uncovered traumas I didn't know I had. So my body was like pushing those out. I uncovered energy I didn't know was a part of me. So I'm pushing that out. So of course, like the response is like, oh my fucking God. Like, and you get like a little bit emotional over it. So now that I'm back in real life, it's important to talk about what happened from there to my next past life regression. And it was about it. This is the longest I went between one past life regression and the next one. And it was about a 2-year span. And before I jump into that, Nate, is there anything you wanted to ask me about that or anything that jumped out to you?
Well, yeah, you know, so maybe you did say this really briefly, but like I just kind of wanted to, that maybe you're gonna get into this now, but like, what was the main lesson that you got from that life, you know, or that you got, or maybe you're still getting? Because there's something in there that you said that really hit me, but I want to hear from you.
Okay, so what I got, because the main life they wanted me to see was the mobster. And what I got from that life was that when things happen that, you know, you regret or you wish you didn't do, you have to do the work to heal those things in whatever life you're in. And it was also important for me to go back in that life and understand that, because when I did that, I kind of healed that side of me. There was also a part, I'm glad you brought that up, because I also like had this moment with that past life where like it was like, it's okay what you did. It was okay that you killed him, okay? And that was presented to me differently than it was my other ones. So that's kind of also why I forgot that. So I'm glad that you brought that up. So that life was important for me to kind of like heal that and start the work of healing that trauma. And during this next 2 years, I dove in deeper of like healing that trauma because it was still a part of my life without knowing it, and in different forms. Don't worry, I haven't killed anyone.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is definitely like what I learned from that life is that like you have to do the work to heal the traumas in your life.
Yeah, I like how you say that, like, you know, to start the healing process, you have to accept what happened. And I mean, I never really thought, you know, about healing like that. You know, and that's one of the toughest parts about healing, because I mean, healing, the process of healing, you know, is pretty messy, you know, and it's not, I mean, it's not something that many people just like choose to do. Like, I want to go to Hawaii and I want to heal myself. Because you have to like totally accept what happened. And like, you know, if we feel guilt or remorse or regret, then we're just like the holding on to that the trauma because we wish it wasn't there. And if you wish something was different than it was, then that thing will just stay the same, which is, you know, kind of that kind of weird and funny, and like, you know, probably get bigger too. So yeah, you know, just being able to like be okay with what happened. It happened. Okay, I accept that. And it's such a simple thing, but like, you know, acceptance and non-resistance, it just goes such a long way. Yeah, there's one other thing that you said in there that hit me, and you were talking about the chain of like how things go. You know, like that this guy kills his boss, takes over, and then he gets killed, you know, and that guy takes over, and on and on and on. And what I thought about that is like, how we, that we kind of like inherit things from our parents. And like, I don't really know to what extent that we get things like, through genetics, but like that we definitely like, get their beliefs and their viewpoints of the world a lot of the times. And that we develop like, different habits or, things like that. And as I think Bob Proctor said something like this. It's like, it's not your responsibility to like blame or get angry for anything that you have. It's just your responsibility to deal with what you have. So like, if you see like, your brother or your mother or your father or whatever, any part of your family, like doing something that you like really wish wasn't going on. You really wish they weren't doing. It's like, it's not your responsibility to, to stop them or change them. It's just your responsibility to have it end with you. Just end it with you. And then you won't continue to carry it on down the line, whether you have children or whether you just interact with other people in life, which you probably will. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, and that's a good point of understanding that generational trauma was a part of me. It was deep rooted, and once I saw it and accepted it, that's when I was able to heal it, and I didn't need to go back and understand a bunch of other people's past lives. All I needed to do was understand my part in it. So that's a good point that you bring up there, Nate. I'm glad that I asked you to chime in there. So the next couple of years was pretty crazy. And so right after that too, not even a week after doing this work, and this is why I say don't be reckless, I got pretty sick. I actually got like the flu like not long after that. And it was because my body brought in a lot of energy that wasn't normal energy, and I started a healing process of traumas. And that's like that's one reason and one belief that I have about getting sick is that there's a reason that there's something that you're not doing the right way, or you're not taking care of your body in the right way. Okay. And this was my body like going into shock a little bit. So like I was like sick for like a good like 4 or 5 days after that.
Like, getting sick or having symptoms like that, it's also a sign of healing. So it's like
exactly,
like, if I for example, like, it's happened before, like if I give somebody like a 3-hour Thai massage that it gets into like, so much of the body and gets so much stuff moving around, and let's say that person that isn't very healthy or active and they have like a lot of toxins in their body, that night that they could literally feel like they have the flu.
Yeah. And it was crazy too, because as I was going through this, first off, I'm not the kind of person that gets sick like that too. I take care of myself really good. And so it's like very few in between before anytime I actually experience anything like that. And what was different about this time is I was having like crazy dreams about the past lives. Crazy dreams where like the Egyptian would like show up in my dream and like be talking to me. The monk would show up in my dream and be talking to me and being like, you have to get through this. You have to push forward. You have a big purpose. You have this, you have that. And so I remember being like, what the fuck, man? Like, this is trippy. What am I doing? And I even like, I talked to Brenda after that, my mentor, and being like, okay, do I do this? Do I do that? And then I realized, lesson learned. Anytime you do a past life regression, you really should do your best to like take a day off and like just lay down and relax and sleep, and like let your body digest to coming back in this world, and like you use like Epsom salt, I think it is, like, and like baths, and like just do self-care and take care of yourself. So that's really what I mean too about like don't be reckless. Like, these are things that I wish I knew a little bit more. And even like, it's funny too, is Brenda told me some of those things and I was just like, oh, I'm good. Like,
oh, of course.
I'm all right. Yeah. because I
Oh,
know it
not
all,
me.
right? I just saw 3 past lives, okay, and I know it all, okay, like just ridiculous thinking, okay. So, so that's just important to know. And then like not too long after that, I had like a lot of this anger and frustration coming up, and I was overreacting to things. And that's when I really started doing more work of like, I did some therapy. I did some other, worked with some other mentors and people that got me through a lot of things that like popped up. And that's when I really realized this was all related to that generational trauma that I was like pushing through. And during that time too, I've shared on another episode, I think it's episode 3, that I am an addict in recovery. During that time, I was transforming into being in recovery during that course of 2 years as well. And I also lost way more weight. I kind of got in check a lot more. I lost another, like I said, I've lost over 100 pounds. And those past lives kind of propelled that forward of like me doing all that work and me realizing, okay, you have to get past these traumas. You have to figure out what's going on inside of you. You have to not just figure it out, but heal it and do something about it and understand it. Right.
That's so good. You say not figure it out, but heal it, because like you can't figure out healing. It makes no sense.
Makes no sense. Right. And so it was me understanding and healing and doing all that work that made me really dive into things more and more and more. And during that course of 2 years, right before that, I started getting into, I started what I thought was diving deep into meditation and learning spirituality and learning just different things. When I came out of those past lives, it really like shifted my way of thinking a lot and really understanding I don't know shit. I need to learn everything I can. And it was more of a thing of, what did I just do? Like, holy shit, how did I do that? I want to do more of that. I want to understand that. I want to get to a point too that I could control it more. Because remember how I said like I could barely breathe. I could barely like control the energy. So I really started doing a lot of work with like understanding what Reiki was about, chakras, other energy works. I started diving into little things like crystals, which we could talk about on another episode at a time. Like, and crystals were important too, because there are like healing stones within it. So like if you're going through anxiety, if you're going through trauma, there's different like energy stones that like help you like get through that. Right. Some people will call them like little pills, like little medicines. All right. So I started doing all these things, all these, what I would think would be just wacky, weird, never would have tried, but I tried them because I was like, there's just way more to what I'm doing. Like, there's way more to life than what we're being told, what I'm being told, and what I've understood to this point.
Yeah, actually, I think
you were going to say something there?
The first time that we ever spoke about like anything kind of spiritual, I think, at South Bay, is like because you knew that I was getting into yoga and stuff, and then you mentioned that you're going to see this guy or woman, like, who does crystals and stuff, and I was like, whoa, that's super random. Ben's into crystals. I mean, I know nothing about crystals. I was like, this is really cool. I mean, I want to know more about this.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, that's a thing you never would. I mean, we only talk about it so much. We only talked about it with where we work at, but like, yeah, like I thought it was cool. Like I wanted to explore it more. And even looking at it now, like I still explore it. Like it's cool shit. That's stuff too that, to dive into, oh, that's just weird. That's wacky. These are things that Indians would use, ancient people would use all the time. And at some point in Western culture, we stopped doing it. And, those are like the things that we need to understand, that we don't know shit and we think we do, but we don't. And that's what I say too about mixing, I've talked about in other past episodes of, mixing medicine with, what doctors say and what you can find out on your own, and finding like a cool thing that like this little rock could help you heal. Like that's just amazing. Right. So I'll stop there because that's a whole other tangent and jump into, what else happened to me during that time. Let me look back at my notes here. Oh, so like I started exploring more too. Like I got to this point where I really I knew I had a bigger purpose, and I was like, I'm going to do anything I can to like find out exactly what I want to do in life, find out exactly, how I can be healthier, be more present, do all these things. And one of those things that I dove into a little bit in order to lose weight as I started doing a vegan diet, because I got to this point where I was like, I don't give a fuck what anyone thinks. I'm going to use crystals. I'm going to try being vegan for a little bit. I don't care what anyone thinks at all. I'm just going to do stuff. And so I did, and it worked for me. And flash forward to now, it doesn't work for me today. I won't get into that too much. I still eat a very healthy lifestyle, and I'm always trying new things. And it wasn't that one thing, which is a whole episode in itself that you guys can go back to. It wasn't that one thing that like made me lose the weight. It was me trying a bunch of different things that made me lose the weight. But it's important to my next life that I point that out, that I went vegan for a period of time. And I also tried new things like crystals and energy work. And I was doing a bunch of different things regarding all that. And then I got called to do another past life regression. And as I was going through, another great mentor of mine who eventually I think we should have her on this podcast too. Her name's Tammy. She was helping me do energy work. And one day during a session, she just like pointed out, she's like, there's a female energy past life that's around you that wants to call itself forward. And I was like, what? There's a female energy past life that's here? She's like, yeah, you need to explore that more, right? So once again, I don't know shit about anything, and thinking that, we're all these, thinking that I'm just this like masculine man and there's no way that I could be calling forward female energy. I swallowed my pride and, dove into it more and more. And I got to this point again where I, called up Brenda. I was like, hey, there's more work that needs to get done. Let's dive into this one. And it's really cool to me that it took me 2 years to like dive into this next one, because I started actually understanding how to control energy, how to work with it, how to feel through it. And when I dove into this next one, I was able to actually control what I was doing more in the past life. And that was big for me. So this next one I called The Witch, and she is honestly my favorite past life regression. I like them all in different ways, but just this story that I'm going to dive into with it and just everything that happened with it was just really freaking cool. So leading up to this, I also, started getting to this point again where I thought I had it all figured out. I thought I understood everything about everything. And Spirit again reminded me when I dove into this that I don't know shit about shit. And I dove into this past life, and this time around I had a little bit more control of it. So when I was in space, like I felt like I was in more control, and I'm getting a countdown from Brenda of when I'm going to go into the past life. And remember too, I started working with crystals then. And so like I was like holding like a couple crystals and like these like wands with me and some dope stuff. And so I'm holding it during the past life regression. And as I'm like getting this countdown, something just told me just to lift this thing up. And I opened up this hole, and I opened up this portal, and I was like, did I just fucking do that? That's really cool. And so I opened up this portal, and as I'm getting called through, like I can see like it's like space, and then it's like this forest. So like it's all black, and then you see this hole, and then you see this forest. And like I don't know how else to describe it besides that, but it looked really, really trippy. And you have something you want to say?
Well, it's like a Nightmare Before Christmas. You know that scene, but
yes,
it's like the opposite. They're in the
yes.
forest, and then they go into the world.
Yes, it totally was like that. I'm so glad you made that analogy. Just FYI, too, Nightmare Before Christmas is one of my favorite movies.
Perfect time to go watch it. It's almost Halloween. Well, probably not when you're listening to this.
Exactly. Yeah, but it's on my list of things to do right now. Yeah. So anyways, I open up this little portal with Jack Skellington through the tree. Okay. And as I step in, I'm in this forest, and I'm like, this is really freaking cool. And like, what was awesome about it is I felt like I had more control over my body. Like I felt like I was walking around and like watching these things unfold. Okay. So I'm walking through, and then like I hear this girl or this woman like singing, and like I'm like called to like go over to it. I'm like, what's up with this, right? And I walk in, and I'm walking around, and I'm going through these trees, and then like I see this lady just like dancing and like just having a blast, and like she's like around this fire, and she's like circling around the fire, and she's like singing these songs and like doing like all these crazy wacky things. And like I look on the ground too, and like what tripped me out is I look on the ground, and she like has a couple different crystals and rocks that like she's like using in this ceremony. And I'm like, dude, like that's crazy that I started working with that stuff, and like that it's there right now. Right. So she's like doing this work, and then I look, and there's nobody around, but there's like all these animals like around her, like not scared. And I'm like, that's trippy. And like I see like these like rabbits and this deer and like all these little birds like floating around. I'm like, what is going on?
Definitely
right?
A good sign.
And yeah, so like I'm like, okay, like what she's not a bad person, like she's like a good person, like these animals are drawn to her, right? Like what else is gonna happen? So then all of a sudden she can't see it, but in the distance I could see like these like torches and like this like big group of people like going towards her, and she's like so in the zone, she's not worried about like anything, right? So then all of a sudden she turns around because she doesn't realize what's going on, and she sees like just all these people. It looks like a big village just around her. Okay. And the best way to describe of like what I realized it looked like, we'll talk about Halloween movies again there, is it honestly looked like Hocus Pocus, like where like the people were dressed in those kind of clothes, and like they were going after the Salem witches. Like that's like literally what it looked like. They all look like
in the last past life,
okay.
You were in the mob, and now the mob's coming to you. Trying to get
right. you. Yeah. So, okay. So then they're like right there in front of her, and then like it just is chaos to her all of a sudden, right? And this dude like takes this like, he like had an axe in his hand, but he just used like the head of it, and he just busts her right in the face and knocks her down. And then this other guy who has like it was like an arrow or a gun or something, but anyways, they started killing some of the animals that were around, and they all like took off. Okay. And then they like grab her by the head, and they like took like what were her like crystals and her things, and they like just threw it in the fire and broke it all. And that's when like it was like a moment I paused, and I like became her for a second, and I could feel like how sad she was over all of her things breaking that like were like personal belongings. Like you could tell the way she was dressed, she didn't like have much, so like those to her were everything. And like I could just feel like the pain of like she didn't even care about her getting her head bashed in. She was like just in pain and agony of losing her like little magical things. Okay. And then like as she was like drugged by the hair, I could feel my hair like getting pulled, and I was just screaming, and just like they were dragging me just through the dirt.
Wow.
And I could feel like that's when I like became her for a second, and I could see like just nothing but sky, and like I was just like just flaring my arms, and like they drag me and drag me and drag me, right? And then like I got like knocked out, and when I came to, I was like strapped to this chair, and I was over this like this thing of water, and like there was this chair and like this wooden attachment, and like they were getting ready to dunk me into water. And so I'll pause there for a second too, because if you're on YouTube, you'll be able to see like, so I Googled after this past life, because I didn't know, I always thought about witches getting burned like at the stake. So I didn't know they drown witches too. So I Googled like witches being drowned. And this picture literally is exactly what they did to me. So like see like the wooden thing, and like they were able to like bob me in the water. So like that's what they did to me. So I woke up and I was strapped to this chair, and I woke up that way. So you could take that down now. So yeah, when I saw that picture too, I was like, what the fuck? So I'm attached to this chair, and like I like have this feeling like this is it, they're gonna kill me. So, and they start like talking to me, and they were like chanting like these Bible verses, and like calling me evil, and like calling me a witch. And so that moment like paused, and my guide Brenda like was like, okay, Spirit's asking me for you to pause here, and they want you to go back of like what this person's life was before this moment. And so like I just kind of like let myself be and started thinking things through, and all of a sudden they like showed me when I was a little girl, and they wanted me to see like that trauma that girl, they wanted to show me all the traumas that girl went through, okay, to get to this point in her life. So they start showing me like me when I'm really little, and I'm like with my mom in that past life, and the mom is like having me play like with these bunnies, and having me play like with other animals, and was like explaining like how like we need to take care of these things, we need to take care of the animals, we need to take care of nature. And we would be out like in the forest picking flowers together, and she was a really influential person in my life. Well, she was into witch stuff too, I guess. And at some point they figured it out, and they dragged her off. And this other image that I had of what was going on around me was her getting dragged away and like thrown up on a horse and like took off. And I never saw my mom again. And so that was like a really like painful part of my life. Now, my dad at the time, who was like a very influential person in the village, I guess you can say, of where I was at, he was the one that like had her taken off to get killed. And then I was stuck with him, and throughout the course of my whole life, I got the shit kicked out of me by him. He did not very nice things to me. He would like starve me because I had this fascination with animals. I never wanted to eat meat at the time, which is trippy, because I'll pause there that before this past life, I started doing the vegan thing for like no apparent reason besides that. Okay. And like he would torture her to the point where like he would only be like, you need to eat this. You can't eat just, fruit and vegetables and things. And he would like torture me and not let me eat anything else. And I would just starve myself until like I would get my way. And that's how it was for like a good chunk of my life. So like what was cool about this energy is no matter what she was throwing at her, she always stuck to what she knew was right. And she was always just gung-ho on like, I know what's right to me, and what you do to animals, how you treat nature, how you do these things, they're just not the right way. And I'm never going to break to do that. To the point where she would be starved and she would just say whatever. And they obviously would keep her alive too, because it was a village. Everyone had their own jobs. So it was very important that like you had enough people to like work in the village. You didn't just kill people to kill people. So, you know, my job was to clean up the house, do chores, attend to other things around the village. I would have to milk cows. So like I would be like at a place where I was like milking cows. And so I would be like, you know, they would keep me alive, but I would torture myself by like not eating and also get the shit kicked out of me. So that was like my entire life until like I was about, when they actually killed me, I was probably like, I got the sense that I was between like 24 to 27 years old. And getting back into what else my life looked like is I would do all my chores just so I can go and like go play in the forest. Like my favorite thing to do was to like go and play like in the forest and be out in nature and like play with animals. And I obviously like at some point too, like I learned like different energies works, and you can say like spells from my mom. But the spells like were to like protect things. So like it was about like protecting animals, protecting nature. And so that's like I carried on her legacy. To me, I was carrying on her legacy to like do that. And so like I also would like fuck with stuff that like the village would do, where like they would set traps for like rabbits and shit, and I would like break them. And so like there was a lot of people that figured this out, that I was not the most liked person around the whole village that I was at.
What you're saying is so interesting, because like so I'm picturing like that this is like maybe back in like the Puritan America, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, so I mean, a witch, like, you know, obviously I didn't live in that time, but like a witch could easily just be a woman who was very connected with spirit. So like, you know, you could say very connected with animals, very connected with nature, very connected with the energy inside of her body, you know, and very connected with just the energy that's inside of all living things. And like a spell, I mean, it just dawned on me, a spell could just be like an affirmation. I mean, it could just be
right,
her ability, you know, and the ability and awareness, you know, of the power of thought. That's all that, like, you know, a spell could have meant to those people back then who were, you know, they're probably very obsessed with some ideology, and they were very, very rigid in how they saw the world and themselves. And like, you know, obviously they're all connected, and there's only one source of life, and like, you know, the permeating in like all these different forms. But in the form that we all have different abilities. So like a man has different abilities than a woman. And the more I learn just about the kind of energies that, you know, like the flow to and through the female, like the female body and the male body, it seems like the females have the different abilities, and just kind of like more of like an easier ability to feel that connectedness, and to feel that love. And I think in a lot of ways that the men and women can both be leaders, but maybe leading different things. And I think that women can be such powerful leaders, you know, in the spiritual realm of things. And like, you know, throughout the course of history, you know, I think that maybe men saw that, and because men that maybe didn't understand it, and because men are physically more dominant, then men just used that advantage to, like, you know, hurt and pin down and control. And then, like, you know, history shows what we've done to women, and it's just like totally messed up on so many levels. But then I'll wrap it up and I'll say, so I've been like in the yoga world, in the spiritual world for like maybe 4 years now. And there's very few men, I mean, obviously more and more and more. Like right now, for example, I'm in a group of 20 people. There's one other guy. It's like all women, and like for like a long time I was thinking like, man, where are the men? Like, come on, let's get the men going. And then recently I thought, it's totally fine. Like, I love this like, resurgence of women and like, coming back into themselves and empowering themselves in their own body and spirit. And then like, I would love for there to be like this just like movement where men follow the women, into this path. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, and that's part of like what we talked about with Brenda in the last episode 9, that we are at this crazy time where we're going to see that kind of happen a little bit more. And it's funny because guys, as guys, we all act we're acting big, macho, we're in our ego when we do that kind of shit. And I'll say this, the best way to really realize, why you should listen is when it actually, if you have a good mom, if you're lucky enough to have a good mom, you shut your mouth when your mom talks and you listen, because your mom took care of you, your mom loved you, your mom nurtured you, right? And so we have that respect when our moms are talking to us, if we're very lucky enough to, I'm really lucky. I honestly have the best mom in the world to me. And that to me is how, looking at it that perspective and looking at it through the perspective of this witch, when I call this past life forward, that really helped me understand what divine feminine energy is and what divine masculine energy is, and understanding that there is that balance and understanding that there can be that respect. So men can lead, but we also need to listen, and we need to listen to that loving nature and that loving side of everything, because it keeps us on a better path. So that's what we mean too by, guys, don't get freaked out. We're not going to have just a bunch of Amazon warrior princesses around us dominating us all the time. It's going to be a balance, and that's what I think this new golden age is going to look like. And it'll be a lot of fun when it does come into light. But getting back into why this is important to me, why I understood it, or how I understood it, and let's backtrack here. So everyone in the village didn't really like me very much. I was the weird wacko, and I like what you're saying about being a witch, because this person wasn't like a legit like witch. Like, looking at it this way, if you think of Reiki and chakras and yoga, some people will think you're a witch by doing those things. So that's kind of what this person's life was about. And so they also showed me this memory that everyone in the village started like thinking I was a witch. And what happened was there was this bird that like was on the ground, and like the kids were like, all these other kids were like messing with it and like poking at it, and we're being like, oh, it's dead. Oh, ew. And without them knowing, I took it away and I put it in this little box and I nursed it back to health. And so it was either like my friend or a sibling like found this box and opened it up, and this bird came out of it. And it ended up like flying away because I nursed it back to health. And like right when that happened, everyone was like, witch, she brought something back to life. And like, so right then and there, like everyone thought like I was a witch, even though all I did, like nothing died, even though like people thought it was dead. It wasn't. I just nursed it back to health. So that was my life, as everyone thought I was the weird witch in the village all the time. And I would do my chores, do what I needed to, sneak out as much as I could and go into the forest. And they figured out what I was doing in the forest. They figured out like I was breaking traps and like doing other stuff that like were witch things and not memorizing my Bible verses and other things they wanted me to memorize. And so like they beat me up more. They, you know, wouldn't let me do things more. And so I had this really, so it was this really crazy life of, you know, I always did what I knew was right, and nothing was going to ever stand in my way. And they wanted me to see that, to see where I was, you know, how that got me to being in the chair. And so after they showed me all those things, they flashed forward me again back to the chair. And I was in the chair, and they started bobbing me down, and I could feel myself just drowning. And as I was coming up, they were saying, will you stop being a witch? Will you, you know, they're just chanting all these evil things to me. Will you stop being evil? Will you cast these demons outside of you? And I would be like, no, right? I would just yell back at them. And so then Brenda had me stop and pause there too. And this was important to understand. So she then told me, okay, go around and go into other lives that were a part of this. And I was like, what, you can do that? She's like, yeah. So hop into like other lives that are around you. And so like, I just like looked over at like this other villager, and I hopped into them, and I felt what they were feeling. And so at first I did like this little child, and the little child was thinking, oh my gosh, this witch is so crazy. You know, why won't they just stop these evil ways? And then like I jumped into this other villager who was like an older woman who like cared, like I could get the sense that they cared for me when I was a child. And they're like, she was just thinking in her head, she never could just listen. She always wanted to do her own thing. You know, whatever is going to happen to her, it's just God's way, and God wants this evil out of her. And then like I jumped to the guy that was bobbing me up and down, and that guy was just saying like, why can't this evil witch just get rid of her ways? We need to get these demons out of her. We have to do it. Now, the reason why I bring that up and why I thought it was important is this really gave me a perspective on that everyone is going to have their own beliefs. Everyone is going to think what they want to think, and we can't just change everyone's minds. And it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. You're supposed to live your life, what you're supposed to do. And if you think your purpose is to save animals, if you think your purpose is to go out in the forest and dance, then just fucking dance. Like, that's what gives you joy. And so then after I saw all of those villagers and felt all their responses to what was going on, I started really getting like, wow, like she really doesn't give a fuck about what other people think. So then I flashed back forward to her, and I was bobbing up and down. I could feel myself drowning. And I got to this point where they bobbed me up and down, and I came up from the water, and I was laughing. I was laughing at them, and I was cracking up. So they were like, damn, this witch is fucking crazy, right? And I was laughing at them, and I literally said right back to them, you guys are evil. You guys are wrong. Everything that you're doing is what's evil and wrong with the world. And I'm never going to change who I am at any point in time. And that's when they bombed me down. They kept me down there, and I felt myself die and go away. And when that was over with, what was a really cool moment was when that was over with, everyone kind of disappeared and like turned to like, we'll just say it was like dust. Okay. Everyone just kind of disappeared. And then the forest was like older, and like the village was gone, and the forest was more empty. And then she was standing there right in front of me, and she looked like really happy, and like was like, the best way to say it is just looked like a beautiful ball of light. And she looked at me and she said that it's important for you to understand what this life is all about, that whatever you want to do, go do it. Live out your purpose, live out what feels right to you, and don't ever care what anyone else ever thinks. And she's like, and then she told me, I'm here now, my spirit stays in this forest, and I protect the animals, and I protect anyone that needs it all the time. And now my spirit walks around this forest just like I always intended to protect it and to be with it. So even though she died, even though she, in a physical sense, wasn't able to protect the animals, protect the forest, do those things, she stayed there in her spirit form. And she told me she's still there, wherever it is. I don't exactly know the exact location, but wherever it is. And she's still there to do what she does, do what she wants to do, because that's what she loves. And that's what she told me is basically, you do what you love and you do your purpose, and the rest will come into place. And then also too, I don't get names very much from any of my past lives. This is the only one I can actually call a specific name to. But I did ask, what do I call you? And she said, my name's not important, but you can call me Rose. And that was important and significant to me because of my grandfather loved roses. So he took care, like he was a farmer, and he loved having a bunch of roses around too, because my grandma loved them. And so that was important. That was just like a really cool moment for me that she would say that. And also too, roses are really beautiful. They're unique, and there's a bunch of spiritual aspects behind them. And so that's how I remember her. Wow. And call in that energy. And it's a beautiful story.
That is absolutely beautiful. I'm just kind of like the feeling chills that kind of enveloped on my body. But yeah, like, the doing what you want to do, if it's based out of love, then, there's nothing you need to worry about. And, like, the one I got, into this kind of new way of living, like, the living more from the heart. Honestly, like, I hid it for a long time. Like, from the friends that I grew up with, that from my parents and my relatives. Like, I didn't want to, like, to say anything that was, like, really, really loving, because, like, I thought that that'd be made fun of or something for it. And then, like, at some point, I was just like, what am I hiding? This is ridiculous. Like, if I actually want to say or do something out of love, what is wrong about that? There is absolutely no harm in doing something out of love, and it's so freeing, to be able to act naturally as you are, and just be loving. Like, say to your friend, if you're another guy, just tell them that you love them, to give them a hug, and then you can also say this to all, of your woman friends, I love you. And it doesn't need to be sexual, because you're just coming from a place of love. Like, me, you, we're one, and we can love each other.
Yeah, exactly. And, both of those past lives for me were really unique and special, because it really set me on this path of where I'm at today, that I don't care what everyone thinks. And I'm going to speak my mind. I'm going to tell my crazy, wacky stories of past lives and other spiritual things that we talk about in the show. And it is what it is. Like, either you're going to love it or you're going to hate it. And I don't give a fuck. And I think that's how we all really need to be, that we need to be our true, authentic selves. And I could tell you that I have a lot of fun telling these stories. I think they're amazing. I think they're wonderful. And I have a lot of fun talking about everything that we talk about on this podcast. And, those past lives are really important to me, because they set me on the path that I am now, that if I didn't recover those, if I didn't do that work, I don't think I would be doing this. I think I would still be scared, shy, not completely speaking my mind. And, you know, it really set both me and you on a path that we're here now speaking our truth, of what's important to us and what we enjoy doing, which, you know, call me a witch. I don't give a fuck. But I'm going to mess with Reiki and yoga and all the energy work I can do. And I'm going to tell you one thing too. I'm not done, because I still can say I don't know shit. And I'm still learning a lot. And I'm going to probably continue to try a lot of different new things.
Now, I know that this episode will be called something like The Mobster and the Witch, but I wish we could call it I Don't Know Shit.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah.
There's one more thing that I wanted to talk about, you know, about the past life of the witch, you know, is that point where that you went into the other people in the mob, you know, and you kind of got into their heads, and they're calling, you know, something outside of them evil, and they're killing that person. And like, it's just a really wonderful, the wonderful image of like, when you, that the world is like a mirror, right? And like, you know, if somebody or something else, you know, stirs something up inside of you, like our natural reaction is to like get like angry or frustrated at that feeling, whether it's like, you know, the anger, you know, or the frustration, or judgment or impatience. You know, if we feel that inside of us, then we tend to like, you know, try and like get rid of it, and we end up putting it, you know, on the outside person or situation. So like, you know, a simple example is like, you know, if a terrorist like that does something that really harmful and kills a bunch of people, and then like the natural reaction for most of the world is to want that person to die. It's like, how are you any different from them? Yeah, they just killed somebody, but then you wanting them to die, or you wanting them to like pay for it, you know, or to whatever fashion you think that is, then what's the difference between you two right now? So like, you know, if they make you feel that, then in some way or another, you know, it's a blessing, because they're showing you that you have that inside of you. So there's no point in like, you know, trying to like judge or yell, you know, or punish the other person if that's inside of you. So, you know, it all comes back to just, you know, can you be in a place of love and then act?
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, when I did that, when I was jumping around, first off, I was like, this is crazy cool. Like, I can't believe I'm doing this. And then to hear their thoughts, to hear that message, that's when it really, like, having that perspective really helped me with my beliefs, which, if you haven't listened to the episode, what do we call it? That's Just Your Belief, Man. But that podcast where we break down that beliefs are just your beliefs. I couldn't change what those villagers thought of me. And why was I going to act like them if that's not who I really was? Now, I could have gone about my life, and I could have, you know, done what they said and been to society. That was their society, right? But I wouldn't be living out my sole purpose. I wouldn't have been doing what I really wanted to do, and I would have ended up being miserable because I wouldn't be doing what I wanted to do. And that's what really hit me of that whole lesson, the whole perspective that I gained from that past life was just do what you want to do, and don't let anything ever hold you back, because maybe they're wrong and you're right. And that's the thing. We get so stuck in our beliefs that we can't think to look through another lens of what if we're wrong? What if we're wrong? And I think this is an important thing to kind of end on and wrap up with, is that, you know, we have a crazy what seems like a crazy world going on. Everything's changing. There's people who think they're right, they're wrong, this and that, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's trying to get their point of views across. Everyone's trying to do this, do that. And we're forgetting just to love one another. And we're still looking at the fact that we need a leader to lead us into greatness. Where, what if we can just lead ourselves into greatness?
Yeah.
And, you know, if we really look back of any society that really flourished, it was from people working together that really helped everyone flourish. And that's why I'll continue to say it. What will come out of, you know, this world that we're living in, everything that will come out of it without even I don't even have to look at politics behind it. I don't have to look at anything. I know that people will end up working together. When this is all said and done, people will remember to love one another, and people will go after their purpose again.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you know, if the political party that you want to be elected gets elected, I promise, you know, it's not going to fix, you know, or like heal that the fundamental issue that we have going on in this nation and this world. Because us as a collective, you know, at the top, it's just the representation of how we are, you know, at the bottom as the whole of society. And there's an awesome quote, I don't know who said it, but it's like, every nation has the government that it deserves. So if we really want to make a change, then we have to stop that being so polarizing within just ourselves. Yeah, and then hopefully we can, you know,
Right.
help other people to see that that's a better way to live, actually.
Yeah. And everyone's guilty of that. I get worked up with it too,
Yeah.
myself. It's hard not to. It's hard not to turn on the news and get worked up and have your beliefs and want everyone to believe what you believe. But, you know, I always go back to I always go back to the different energies in past lives, and I realize that we're nothing. What we're experiencing, we don't know shit, and we don't have anything figured out. And it's all part of the experience, and we think like, you know, what good can come out of this? You know, this is going to be the end of the world. But I promise you it's not going to be. They've been waiting for the end of the world for a long time, and it just never seems to happen. So stop getting so wrapped into it and just remember to have fun and enjoy the experience, because that's part of the journey.
Yeah. The life is a mystery, and can we be okay with that?
Yeah, exactly. Anything else you want to add to that, Nate?
Nope, I love it.
Okay. So I'll end on this is that, you know, we'll continue to dive into the other past lives. They're all unique. You know, I say this one is one of my favorites because it just taught me a lot. But I have a lot left to learn. And I hope that listening to these stories and listening to my experiences can help you do what you want to do and don't care what anyone else thinks. Because at least you live in a society that you're not going to be burned at the stake or drowned. And you can be weird and wacky, and you're honestly going to get praised for it. So you live in a very cool time that you can do that for the most part. Not everyone's lucky enough to, but for the most part, you can. And you can be on social media and be your true authentic self. So this is a beautiful time to be alive. It's not as wacky, and it's not as bad as you may think. Why don't you take us out today, Nate?
Okay. Okay, cool. So just take a few more moments just to, you know, be still and be present. And again, you know, you could do that just by following a couple breaths. And again, just notice the body relaxing. Maybe you can notice the heart beating. And can you just, feel a moment or two of feeling a complete acceptance at the present moment? Yes, an internal, it's okay. Just this moment here, it's okay. It's like saying yes. And then if you can connect with that, spot inside of you that is just naturally still, naturally quiet, right? The part that can just watch everything, just observe everything. Just let that be in the forefront of your attention just for a couple moments. And I don't know, maybe that spot is who we truly are, but I know that it sure beats that beats thinking all the time. All right, then start to take a couple deep breaths. And let the body move a little bit. And then nice and slowly let the eyes begin to open. And I just want to thank everyone so much for listening. And thank you, Ben, for sharing. It's just so cool hearing those stories, and your perspective on it. And I mean, all throughout the episode, I think I said like 10 times, I'm getting chills right now. And I think that's a sign that you're being touched deeply. So thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, brother, and thank you everyone that listened today. And we all hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and just enjoy this journey and go have some fun. And maybe if you want to go dance in a forest, go fucking do it. Just have some fun today and enjoy this experience called life. Sending you lots of peace and love, everyone.
Peace.